The morning light filtered through the windows as I approached my salon, only to see an unexpected scene unfolding in front of me. My mother-in-law, her presence as commanding as ever, stood by a moving truck, ordering the workers to bring in furniture. I clenched my fists, trying to stay calm. "Why are you getting in my way, Shelley?" she called out loudly, her voice echoing down the street. "I told you I'm moving in here, so clear out whatever you don't need and make space for my things." Her brazen words stung, but beside her, my husband Sean just chuckled, looking both apologetic and helpless. This wasn't the life I envisioned. I'd worked hard to build my salon, and now her invasive demands threatened to undo it all. "This is my store, not a residence," I insisted, trying to hold my ground. But it felt like I was standing on shifting sand, Sean's loyalty wavering between me and his mother. The painful realization began to settle. I was on my own in this fight. 4 years ago, when Sean and I married, I thought I'd found the partner who would support my dreams. Sean was gentle and soft-spoken, qualities I admired at first. His father had passed away early in his life, and his mother raised him alone, showering him with a protective love that was, at times, overwhelming. Sean worked for a local manufacturing company, a decent job, though he struggled to climb the ranks due to his inability to assert himself. I had hoped that in our marriage we'd be able to grow together, that my confidence could balance his gentleness. But as time passed, I realized his mother's influence was stronger than I'd anticipated. Her presence in our lives grew, and soon, she was dictating everything from our household arrangements to how Sean should handle finances. Sean's passivity only enabled her more. My heart sank as I began to see that his loyalty was torn, and he lacked the strength to stand up for the life we were building. My dream of becoming an esthetician had been a long journey. I had grown up insecure about my looks, frequently teased and made to feel self-conscious. Then, one day during high school, a friend and I came across a beauty salon offering free trials. Stepping into that clean, comforting space felt like walking into another world. The esthetician treated me with such kindness, transforming my view of myself in a single session. Seeing my reflection afterward was like looking at a new person. From that moment, I knew I wanted to give others the confidence she had given me. I put myself through school, trained under experts, and eventually saved enough to open my own salon. When Sean and I married, he knew this was my passion, something I'd worked tirelessly to achieve. But now, his mother was threatening to dismantle it all in the name of her convenience. One evening, after a particularly hectic day at the salon, I returned home, hoping to unwind. Instead, Sean was waiting for me, looking unusually serious. "Shelley, we need to talk," he said, his voice hesitant. My heart sank, sensing trouble. He explained that his mother had accumulated substantial debts and was on the verge of losing her home. "What? How did this happen?" I asked, struggling to hide my shock. He told me she had always been careless with money, spending recklessly and living beyond her means. Sean went on to reveal that she'd even used up the savings his father had set aside for his education, forcing him to rely on scholarships. Now, she was drowning in debt, and there was no other option but for her to sell her house. "Can she stay with us, Shelley?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. I felt a sharp pang in my chest. Living with her would mean constant conflict, especially if she took over our lives the way she had his. The thought of her moving in was unbearable. I knew Sean's mother well enough to understand that once she settled in, it would be nearly impossible to maintain any boundaries. Her presence in our home would mean endless interference, and I couldn't allow that. "No, Sean," I replied firmly. "She can't stay here. She has a job. She should be able to manage her own place." My voice sounded colder than I intended, but I couldn't hide my desperation. I loved Sean, but his mother's influence over him made our relationship increasingly fragile. Sean looked defeated but said nothing more, letting the conversation drop. Yet, I knew the issue was far from resolved. I could sense his internal struggle, torn between his duty as a son and his loyalty as a husband. The unease gnawed at me, and I began to worry that he would eventually give in to her demands, jeopardizing everything I'd worked for. As expected, my mother-in-law wasted no time in escalating the situation. Early the next morning, my phone rang, jolting me awake. "Why are you so opposed to letting me stay?" she demanded, not even bothering with a greeting. Her tone was sharp, accusatory, each word filled with resentment. I took a deep breath, struggling to stay calm. "Our home is small and we barely have enough space for the two of us," I explained, trying to maintain a level tone. But she wasn't listening. "How dare you speak to me like this?" she snapped. "I'm Sean's mother. You're just his wife." Her words stung, a cruel reminder of how little she thought of me. Before I could respond, she hung up. My mind raced, replaying her words. This was just the beginning, I realized, and a sense of dread settled over me. Her next move would be even more invasive. The very next day, she showed up at our doorstep unannounced. It was early, the sun barely rising over the horizon, when her loud knock shattered the morning calm. "Sean! Shelley!" she shouted, her voice carrying through the quiet neighborhood. Reluctantly, I opened the door, hoping to avoid a scene. Without a word, she brushed past me, marching straight into the bedroom where Sean was still asleep. "I need to move out of my house next week," she declared, her tone leaving no room for objection. "Start making preparations." Sean, barely awake, stammered a weak response, clearly uncomfortable. Watching him bend to her will filled me with frustration, but I held my tongue, knowing any protest would only escalate the situation. I could already see that she had no intention of respecting our boundaries. That evening, I received a panicked call from my staff at the salon. "Shelley, there's an issue here. You need to come quickly," they urged, their tone conveying urgency. Fearing the worst, I rushed over only to find my mother-in-law and Sean inside, rearranging furniture. "What are you doing here?" I asked, barely able to mask my shock. She looked at me with a smug smile. "This is my new home," she announced. "These beds will do just fine for me." I couldn't believe my ears. This wasn't just invasive, it was a direct threat to my business. "This is a salon, not a residence," I argued. But Sean just stood there, nodding along with her plans. My heart sank as I realized that I was losing him to her manipulative influence. Just as I felt completely out of control, a black luxury car pulled up outside. My father stepped out, his commanding presence radiating authority. He was tall, dressed impeccably in a dark suit, his face set in a calm but stern expression. The air around us grew tense as he approached, his eyes fixed on my mother-in-law. "Is there a problem here?" he asked, his voice steady, yet with an edge that made everyone stop in their tracks. My mother-in-law's bravado faltered. "This is a family matter. Who are you to interfere?" she retorted, trying to sound confident, but failing. My father held her gaze, unflinching. "This is my daughter's business. I am the landlord, and this is not a residence. If you have no business here, I suggest you leave." His words left no room for argument. Silence fell as his words sank in. My mother-in-law's defiance faded, replaced by a mixture of confusion and resentment. She glanced at Sean, expecting him to back her up, but he stood there, shifting uncomfortably. With no other choice, she left, muttering under her breath as she stormed out. Sean hesitated, casting a fleeting, regretful glance my way before following her. I felt a wave of relief wash over me, grateful for my father's intervention. But as the door closed behind them, I knew this wasn't over. My mother-in-law's pride had taken a hit, and she wasn't one to let things go so easily. I braced myself, certain that her retaliation would come soon. True to form, her next move came swiftly. Just 2 days later, a moving truck arrived at the salon once again, loaded with her belongings. The workers, oblivious to the tension, began unloading her furniture and arranging it inside. I quickly stopped them, explaining that this was a business, not a place for her to live. They seemed confused, unsure of who to follow. Frustrated, I called Sean, hoping he would finally stand by me. "Please, tell me this is a misunderstanding," I begged. But his response was chilling. "Mom is moving in, Shelley. There's nothing you can do." The realization hit me like a blow. He had chosen his mother over me, and he was willing to sacrifice our marriage and my business to appease her. Heartbroken, I watched as my mother-in-law continued her takeover, smugly claiming my space as her own. But just when I thought all was lost, my father returned with a new plan. "Shelley," he said, his eyes filled with determination, "we're not going to let them take this from you." Together, we arranged to have the locks changed and initiated the legal process to terminate their access to my business. The next day, when my mother-in-law and Sean arrived, they found themselves locked out, their plans halted. Furious, she pounded on the door, demanding entry. But I stood firm. This was my sanctuary, my dream, and I wouldn't let her destroy it. As they left, defeated, I felt a sense of closure. I'd fought for my independence and protected the life I'd worked so hard to build. My business flourished in the years that followed, a testament to my resilience and determination to stand up for myself.